The year was 2847, and humans had spread across 17 star systems. They had built colonies on distant worlds and created ships that could travel faster than light. But in the grand story of the galaxy, humans were still very young. Other species had ruled the stars for millions of years before the first human ever looked up at the night sky and wondered what was out there. Captain Daniel Brooks stood on the bridge of his ship, the Resolute. He was a tall man with gray hair at his temples and eyes that had seen too many strange things in 30 years of space travel. Right now, those eyes were fixed on the main viewing screen, watching pulses of light coming from a region of space that every map marked as forbidden. "Sir, the signal is definitely not natural," said Lieutenant Commander Maria Santos. She was the communications officer, a woman with quick hands and a quicker mind. Her fingers moved across her console as she studied the data. The pattern repeats every 47 seconds. Someone or something is sending this on purpose. But the encoding is very old. It is older than the Kalari Empire. Daniel felt cold when he heard this. The Kalari were considered ancient by every known species in the galaxy. Their empire had lasted for 2 million years before it fell. If this signal was older than them, it meant something had been waiting out there since before life on Earth had crawled out of the oceans. "How old exactly?" he asked. Maria looked at her readings again, as if she could not believe what she was seeing. "At least 3 billion years, Captain. Maybe more." The bridge crew fell silent. 3 billion years was not a number any of them could truly understand. It was longer than complex life had existed on Earth. It was longer than most stars lived. Chief Science Officer Dr. Laura Bennett stepped forward. She was a small woman with round glasses and hair that was always slightly messy from running. Her hands through it when she was thinking. Right now, she was thinking very hard. "Captain, if this signal has been broadcasting for 3 billion years, the power source alone would be beyond anything we know how to build. We are talking about technology that makes our best achievements look like children's toys. Could it be a trap?" asked Commander Ryan Harris. He was the first officer, a man who always looked for danger because he had found it too many times before. "Something that old, still working, still calling out to anyone who listens? That seems like bait to me." Daniel considered this. Ryan was right to be careful. Space was full of things that could kill the unwary. But Daniel had not become a captain by running away from mysteries. "Set a course," he ordered. "But do it carefully, and send a message to Earth Command. Tell them what we found. Tell them we are going to investigate." The journey took 6 days. The space around the signal source was dangerous, filled with gravity wells that could crush a ship and radiation storms that could fry every system on board. The Resolute had to move slowly, picking its way through like a person walking through a dark room full of furniture. On the 6th day, they arrived, and everyone on the bridge stopped breathing for a moment. The thing floating in front of them was not a ship. It was not a space station. It was something that did not fit into any category humans had words for. The structure seemed to exist only partially in normal space. Its edges blurred and shifted, as if parts of it were reaching into dimensions that human eyes could not see. It was massive, bigger than some moons, and it glowed with a soft light that came from no visible source. "What am I looking at?" Daniel whispered. Laura was already scanning it with every instrument the ship had. Her voice shook slightly when she spoke. "The energy readings are impossible. This thing could power 1,000 suns and still have energy left over. And the materials it is made of do not match anything in our databases. Some of them should not even be able to exist according to physics as we understand it. How is it still here?" Maria asked. 3 billion years, and it has not fallen apart, has not drifted into a star, has not been destroyed by anything. Nothing lasts that long. Before anyone could answer, something happened that made Daniel's heart nearly stop. The communications array activated on its own. Every screen on the bridge lit up, and a voice filled the air. It spoke perfect English, with no accent, no hesitation, as if it had known their language forever. Children of Earth, I am Valeth, the Last Keeper. I have waited 4 billion years for a species like yours. I have an offer that will determine the fate of this galaxy. The crew looked at each other in shock. Daniel gripped the arms of his chair and tried to keep his voice steady. This is Captain Daniel Brooks of the Terran vessel Resolute. How do you know our language? How do you know we are from Earth? The voice seemed to smile, if a voice could do such a thing. I have watched your species since you first made fire. I have listened to your radio signals for 200 years. I have studied your languages, your cultures, your hopes and fears. I know you better than you know yourselves, Daniel Brooks. And I have been waiting for you. Waiting for us? Why? Because the galaxy is dying. Because something is coming that will destroy all life, all matter, all energy. And because I have the key to stopping it. But the key requires something only a species like yours can provide. Daniel stood up from his chair and walked closer to the viewing screen, as if he could see the being that was speaking to him. What do you want from us? I want to make a bargain, Valeth said. I will give you the power to save every living thing in this galaxy. In return, I ask for something precious. I ask for a human legacy. I ask for volunteers who will become the eternal guardians of all life. The choice will be yours. I will not force you. I have waited 4 billion years. I can wait a little longer. But I warn you, Daniel Brooks, the galaxy cannot wait much longer. Daniel looked at his crew. He saw fear in their eyes, but he also saw something else. He saw curiosity. He saw determination. He saw the same thing that had driven humans to cross oceans, to climb mountains, to reach for the stars. Tell me everything, he said, and Valeth began to speak. Valeth came aboard the Resolute the next morning. The being did not use a shuttle or a transport beam. One moment the conference room was empty except for the crew, and the next moment Valeth was standing there, as if the entity had simply decided to exist in that spot. The form Valeth had chosen was almost human. It was tall and thin, wrapped in robes that seemed to be made of liquid starlight. The fabric moved and shifted even when Valeth stood still, showing glimpses of distant galaxies and swirling nebulae. The face was gentle and kind, but the eyes gave away the truth of what this being really was. They contained entire universes, spinning slowly in depths that had no end. Daniel had gathered his senior officers around the conference table. Maria Santos sat with her hands folded, trying to look calm. Laura Bennett had brought a tablet and was recording everything. Ryan Harris stood against the wall with his arms crossed, watching Valeth the way a guard dog watches a stranger. Thank you for allowing me aboard your vessel, Valeth said. The voice was soft now, almost gentle. I know this must be strange for you. It is strange for me as well. I have not spoken to living beings in a very long time. You said the galaxy is dying, Daniel said. Explain what you mean. Valeth nodded and waved one long hand. The air above the conference table shimmered, and suddenly they were looking at a map of the galaxy. It was beautiful. Hundreds of billions of stars arranged in great spiral arms, glowing with light and life. But at the edges, something was wrong. There were patches of pure darkness, places where the stars had simply disappeared. I was created by a species called the Architects, Valeth began. They existed when this galaxy was young, when the first stars were still being born. They were wise beyond measure, and they could see far into the future. They saw that something was coming, something from outside our universe. They called these things the Devourers. The image changed, and Daniel felt his stomach turn. The Devourers were not creatures in any normal sense. They were wounds in reality itself, tears in the fabric of existence that consumed everything they touched. Stars, planets, even empty space itself fell into them and vanished, leaving nothing behind. The Devourers come from a place where the rules are different, Valeth continued. They do not want to conquer or rule. They simply hunger. They consume energy, matter, life, even time and space. When they are finished with a universe, nothing remains. Not even darkness. Just absence. And they are here now? Lavra asked, her voice barely above a whisper. They have been feeding on the edges of this galaxy for 300 years. They move slowly because they are careful. They do not want to alert their prey too soon. But they grow stronger with everything they consume. At their current pace, they will reach the core systems within 2 generations. Your Earth, your colonies, every species you have ever known will be erased. Ryan pushed himself off the wall. You said you have a way to stop them. What is it? Valeth reached into the folds of the starlight robe and pulled out something that looked like a small crystal, no bigger than a human hand. It pulsed with soft light, and Daniel could feel power radiating from it, even from across the table. The architects knew they could not defeat the Devourers themselves. They were powerful, but they were few, and they were dying. So they created a weapon, a device that could push back the Devourers and seal the wounds in reality forever. But the weapon requires something they could not provide. What does it require? Daniel asked. Life, Valeth said simply. Organic consciousness. The spark that exists in biological beings, but not in machines or energy constructs like myself. The weapon must be powered by living minds, bonded to it permanently. Those who merge with the weapon will become its eternal guardians. They will gain abilities beyond anything your species has imagined. They will live forever, or close to it. But they will no longer be entirely human. The room was silent. Daniel could hear his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. Maria was the first to speak. When you say not entirely human, what do you mean exactly? Valeth turned to face her. The transformation changes the body and expands the mind. Those who bond with the weapon will be able to exist in multiple places at once. They will perceive reality in ways your current senses cannot imagine. They will feel the vibration of stars and hear the whisper of quantum particles. But they will no longer age in the normal way. They will no longer need food or sleep. They will no longer be able to have children naturally. They will remember who they were, but they will experience existence differently than before. That sounds like death, Ryan said bluntly. You are asking people to die and let something else wear their memories like a costume. No, Valeth replied, and there was deep sadness in that ancient voice. I am asking people to evolve, to become more than they are. The transformed will still love what they loved. They will still remember every moment of their lives. They will still be themselves in every way that matters. But they will also be something new, something capable of standing against the Devourers when nothing else can. Lavra leaned forward. Why us? You said you have watched many species over billions of years. Why choose humans? For the first time, Valeth smiled. It was a warm expression, full of genuine feeling. Because humans are impossible. You should not exist according to probability. You are fragile creatures on a small planet in an ordinary solar system. Yet you have spread across 17 star systems in less than 1,000 years. You carry contradiction within you like a gift. You are capable of terrible cruelty and boundless compassion. You fear death more than almost any species I have observed, yet you throw yourselves into danger to save strangers. You are weak individually, but unstoppable together. Valeth walked to the viewport and looked out at the stars. The architects predicted that only such a species could bear this burden. Only beings who understood both the preciousness and the fragility of life would fight hard enough to save it. I have watched 10,000 civilizations rise and fall. Most became comfortable in their power and stopped reaching for more. Others destroyed themselves before they could grow wise. But humans never stop. You always want to know what is over the next hill, what is beyond the next star. That is why I waited for you. That is why you are the ones I am asking. Daniel stood and walked to stand beside Valeth. He looked out at the same stars, the same vast darkness that held both wonder and terror. How long do we have to decide? He asked. As long as you need. But remember, Captain, every day you wait is a day the devourers grow stronger. Every year is another colony that might be lost. I will not rush you, but time is not your ally. Daniel turned back to his crew. He saw the weight of the universe in their eyes, and he knew they all understood what this meant. We need to take this to Earth, he said. Every human being deserves to know about this choice. It is not ours to make alone. Valeth bowed slightly. I expected nothing less. Go, Daniel Brooks. Tell your people what waits in the darkness. And tell them what they can become if they have the courage to reach for it. The news spread across human space faster than anyone expected. Within days of the Resolute returning to Earth, every person on every colony knew about Valeth and the choice that lay before humanity. The reaction was unlike anything in human history that the United Terran Council called an emergency meeting. Representatives from all 17 star systems gathered in the Great Assembly Hall in Geneva, while billions more watched through quantum-linked broadcasts. For the first time ever, every human being had access to the same information at the same time. Admiral Catherine Morris presented the military assessment. She was a stern woman with silver hair and a voice that commanded attention without needing to be raised. Behind her, images of the devourers flickered on massive screens, showing the darkness that was slowly eating the galaxy. We have confirmed everything Valeth told us, she said. 3 frontier colonies have gone completely silent in the past 10 years. We thought the causes were natural disasters or equipment failures. Now we know the truth. The devourers reached them first. Every person on those colonies is gone. Not dead in any way we understand. Simply erased from existence. The assembly hall erupted in frightened murmurs. Admiral Morris waited for silence before continuing. Our military cannot stop this enemy. Our weapons do not work against something that exists outside normal physics. The only chance we have is the solution Valeth offers. But the price of that solution is something we must all understand. Dr. Laura Bennett took the podium next. She had spent weeks studying the transformation process, working with Valeth to understand exactly what would happen to volunteers. The bonding is permanent, she explained. Once a person merges with the weapon, they cannot go back to being fully human. Their body will change. Their mind will expand. They will perceive reality in ways we cannot currently imagine. They will essentially live forever, but they will no longer experience time the way we do. She paused and looked out at the assembly. I want to be clear about something. The transformed will not be copies or imitations. They will retain their memories, their personalities, their loves and fears. In every meaningful way, they will still be the people they were before, but they will also be more. Think of it like a caterpillar becoming a butterfly. The butterfly is still the same creature, but it can now do things the caterpillar never could. The debate that followed lasted for months. Every religious leader had an opinion. Every philosopher wrote essays. Every ordinary person talked about it with their families and friends. The question was not just about strategy or survival. It was about the meaning of being human. Some said the transformation was a gift, a chance to become something greater than nature had made them. Others said it was death wearing a mask, the ending of true humanity in exchange for something alien and cold. Many simply did not know what to think. During this time, Daniel Brooks returned to Earth. He had not been home in 15 years, and the planet felt both familiar and strange. The air smelt the same. The sun felt the same on his skin. But everything else had changed, including his daughter. Sophie was 28 years old now, a young woman studying alien life forms at the University of New Chicago. Daniel remembered her as a little girl who used to sit on his shoulders and pretend to fly through the stars. Now she looked at him with eyes that held questions he was not sure he could answer. They walked together through a park near the university. The trees had been engineered to survive climate change, but they still looked like the oaks and maples Daniel remembered from his childhood. Some things stayed the same even when everything else changed. "Dad, are you going to volunteer?" Sophie asked. She did not look at him when she spoke. She kept her eyes on the path ahead. Daniel had thought about little else since meeting Valeth. Every night when he closed his eyes, he saw the Devourers consuming stars. He saw the darkness spreading toward Earth, toward this park, toward his daughter. "I am thinking about it," he admitted. The Resolute was the first ship to make contact. There is a responsibility that comes with that. Sophie stopped walking and turned to face him. Her eyes were wet with tears she was trying not to shed. "But you would not be you anymore." "Not really. You would remember being my dad, but would you still feel like my dad? Would hugging me still feel the same? Would you still laugh at my terrible jokes?" Daniel pulled her into his arms and held her tight. She smelled like the lavender shampoo she had used since she was a teenager. Some things stayed the same. "Valeth says the transformed keep their bonds," he said softly. "They still love what they loved. They still care about the people who matter to them. That is not the same." Sophie's voice broke. "I already lost Mom to the colony plague. I cannot lose you too. Not even to something that looks like you and sounds like you, but experiences everything differently." Daniel held her tighter. He did not have words that could make this better. How could he explain that he wanted to protect her so badly that he was willing to become something new? How could he explain that the love he felt for her was exactly why he had to consider this choice? "Maybe that is exactly why I have to do it," he finally said. "So that your children and their children never have to face what is coming. So that no one else has to lose their family to something that should not exist." Sophie pulled back and looked at him. Her tears were falling freely now, but there was something else in her expression. Understanding, maybe. Or acceptance. "If you do this," she said, "promise me you will still visit. Promise me you will still tell me stories about the stars. Promise me you will not forget what it felt like to be my dad." Daniel touched her face gently. "I could never forget that. Not in a billion years. Not if I lived until the last star burned out. You are my daughter. That is not something transformation can change." They stood together in the park as the sun set over New Chicago. Somewhere out in the darkness, the Devourers were still coming. Somewhere in orbit, Valeth was still waiting. But for this moment, Daniel Brooks was simply a father holding his daughter, trying to find the courage to do what needed to be done. The vote came 3 months later. The United Terran Council asked a simple question to every adult human in existence. Should humanity accept Valeth's offer? The answer was yes. 73% voted to move forward. Humanity would face the Devourers. Humanity would transform. Humanity would survive. Now, they just needed volunteers willing to pay the price. The transformed called themselves the Guardians, but most of humanity simply called them family. They looked different now, with skin that seemed to hold shifting patterns of soft light and eyes that glowed like distant stars. They moved differently, sometimes flickering from one place to another as if space itself bent around them. But their voices were the same. Their memories were intact. Their love had not diminished. Daniel opened his new eyes for the first time and saw the universe in ways he could never have imagined. He could perceive individual atoms dancing in the air around him. He could feel the gravitational pull of distant planets. He could hear the faint echo of light that had traveled billions of years to reach him. It was overwhelming and beautiful and terrifying all at once. "How do you feel?" Maria asked. She stood beside him, her own form glowing with the same inner light. But her smile was exactly the same smile she had always worn. "Like I can do anything," Daniel replied. "Like everything I knew before was just a tiny piece of something much larger." Laura appeared beside them, her scientist mind already racing with questions about their new existence. "The connection to the weapon is incredible. I can feel 3 million other minds linked to mine. It is like being part of a single organism while still being completely yourself." The war against the Devourers began 3 months after the last Guardian completed transformation. The creatures from beyond had sensed what humanity was doing, and they accelerated their advance. They came rushing toward the core systems in a wave of hungry darkness, consuming everything in their path. But the Guardians were waiting. Daniel led the defense of the inner colonies. He could exist in multiple places at once now, his consciousness spreading across light years while remaining connected to himself. He appeared above threatened worlds like a protective spirit, his new form blazing with light that the Devourers could not consume. "They are wounds in reality," he told his fellow Guardians during their first battle. "But we can heal wounds. That is what the weapon was designed to do. Focus your minds on the edges of the tier. Push existence back into the void." It worked. For the first time in billions of years, the Devourers encountered something they could not eat. The Guardians created barriers of pure being, walls of consciousness that refused to disappear into nothing. The dark creatures threw themselves against these walls and found them unbreakable. Maria coordinated the early warning network, her expanded mind tracking Devourer movements across 1,000 star systems. She sent warnings before attacks came, gave colonies time to evacuate, and made sure no one was surprised by the darkness again. Laura developed new techniques for healing the damage the Devourers had already caused. She discovered that the wounds in reality could be stitched closed, that space and time could be repaired if enough Guardians focused their power on the same point. Slowly, carefully, they began to reclaim what had been lost. The war lasted 40 years. It was not a war of ships and soldiers, though the human fleet fought bravely alongside the Guardians. It was a war of existence against nothingness, of the will to survive against the hunger to consume. During those 40 years, Daniel visited Sophie whenever he could. She grew older while he stayed the same, her hair turning gray and her face gaining lines that told stories of a life well lived. But her smile never changed, and neither did the love between them. "You look the same as the day you transformed," she said once, when she was 63 and he appeared in her garden like a glowing ghost. "I look like an old woman." "You look beautiful," Daniel replied. "You always did." Sophie laughed, the same laugh she had inherited from her mother. "You are biased. I am honest. There is a difference." He told her about the war, about the battles and the losses and the slow progress they were making. He told her about the other Guardians, 3 million souls who'd become his brothers and sisters in a way that went beyond biology. And he told her that he still felt like her father, even after all the changes, even after all the years. "I knew you would," Sophie said. "That was never the part I worried about." "What did you worry about?" "That you would be lonely. That living forever would become a burden. That you would miss being human." Daniel considered this carefully. He had thought about the same things many times during the long war. "I do miss some things," he admitted. "I miss sleeping. I miss the taste of real food. I miss the feeling of being surprised by something, because now I can perceive so much that surprises are rare. But I am not lonely. I have 3 million guardians who share my thoughts and feelings. I have you and your children and their children. And I have a purpose that makes every moment meaningful. Saving the galaxy, Sophie said. That is quite a purpose. Saving my daughter's grandchildren, Daniel corrected. That is the purpose that matters to me. The final battle came in the space between galaxies, where the last great concentration of devourers had gathered for a final assault. 10,000. Guardians traveled there together, their combined consciousness creating a light that could be seen from 1,000,000 light years away. Daniel stood at the heart of the formation, surrounded by minds he had come to know as well as his own. Maria was beside him, her thoughts intertwined with his. Lara was there too, her brilliant mind analyzing the enemy and finding weaknesses. Christine Park, the teacher from Mars, burned with protective fury as she thought of her students back home. The Devourers attacked with everything they had. They threw waves of nothing at the Guardians, trying to erase them from existence. The darkness was so complete that it threatened to swallow even the light the Guardians produced. But the Guardians did not fight with light. They fought with something stronger. Daniel thought about Sophie. He thought about her laugh, her kindness, the way she had hugged him before he left for the transformation. He thought about every human he had ever known, every moment of joy and sorrow and love that made life worth living. And he sang. The song spread through the connection between Guardians. 3 million voices joined together, singing a melody that had begun on a small blue planet 4 billion years ago. It was a song of life, of growth, of the stubborn refusal to surrender to entropy. It was every lullaby ever sung to a child, every love poem ever written, every hopeful dream ever dreamed. The Devourers broke against that song like waves against a cliff. For the first time in their eternal existence, they encountered something they could not consume. The will to survive, the love of life, the courage to sacrifice everything for others. These things had no substance the Devourers could eat. These things were simply too strong. When it was over, Daniel returned to Earth. Sophie was waiting, older now, a great-grandmother surrounded by children who had only heard stories about the war. She looked up as he appeared, her eyes still bright despite her years. "You did it," she said. "You saved everyone." "We saved each other," Daniel replied. "That is what humans do. That is the legacy Valith was looking for. Not power or technology or ancient wisdom. Just the simple truth that we never give up on each other." Sophie reached out to touch his face. Her hand passed through him now, but she could feel warmth and love where he stood. "Will you stay? For as long as you want me. For as long as anyone wants me. That is the promise of the Guardians. We will watch over humanity forever." And they did. In the centuries that followed, humanity spread across the galaxy and eventually beyond. They built civilizations on 1,000 worlds and made peace with species they had once feared. They grew and changed and evolved, always reaching for something greater than themselves. The Guardians walked among them still, ageless witnesses to human triumph and human tragedy. They remembered what it was to be fully human, and they treasured that memory like a precious gift. They had given up mortality but gained eternity. They had sacrificed their old selves and, in doing so, had shown what humanity truly meant. Valith, the last keeper, finally found peace. 4 billion years of waiting had ended not with tragedy, but with hope. The architects would have been proud. In the end, the key to saving the galaxy was not a weapon or a machine. It was simply this. When given the chance to protect those they loved, humans would always say yes. They would pay any price, bear any burden, become anything they needed to become. That was the legacy. That was the gift. That was what it meant to be human. And so the story continued, not ending but transforming, just like the people who had made it possible. Somewhere in the endless darkness between stars, Daniel Brooks still watched over his descendants. Somewhere in the light that had replaced the void, 3 million souls still sang their song of life. The galaxy was saved. Humanity endured. And love, the most human thing of all, lived forever. The call for volunteers went out across human space, and the response was overwhelming. Within the first week, more than 50 million people had submitted their names. They came from every colony, every nation, every walk of life. Scientists and soldiers, teachers and farmers, young people barely old enough to volunteer, and elderly people who had lived long, full lives. All of them were willing to give up their humanity to save everyone they loved. The selection process took 6 months. Valeth had said the weapon needed at least 1 million bonded minds to reach full power, but could accept up to 5 million. Medical teams worked around the clock to examine volunteers, checking for the rare conditions that might make the transformation dangerous or impossible. Daniel Brooks was among the first to be approved. So were Maria Santos and Laura Bennett. Ryan Harris volunteered as well, but the medical tests found a small abnormality in his brain that made him incompatible. The bonding might kill him, or worse, leave him trapped between human and transformed with no way to complete the change. Ryan took the news hard. He had served with Daniel for 20 years. The thought of being left behind while his friends went forward into something unknown was almost unbearable. "I should be going with you," he said, standing in Daniel's quarters aboard the Resolute. "We have faced everything together. This should not be any different." Daniel put a hand on his friend's shoulder. "You are coming with us, just in a different way. Someone needs to coordinate the defense forces for those who stay human. Someone needs to protect the colonies while we deal with the Devourers. There is no one I trust more for that job." Ryan was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was rough with emotion he was trying to hide. "You come back from this, Daniel. Whatever you turn into, you come back and tell me what it is like. I promise." The final list contained 3 million names. 3 million people who had looked at the end of everything and decided they would rather become something new than watch their species die. 3 million acts of courage that would be remembered for as long as there were beings capable of remembering. Among them was Christine Park, a 32-year-old teacher from a small colony on Mars. She had spent her career helping children learn about the universe, showing them pictures of distant galaxies and explaining the science of stars. When she heard about the Devourers, she had not hesitated for a second. "My students are the reason I am doing this," she told a reporter the day before the transformation. "I have watched them grow and dream and reach for things bigger than themselves. I cannot let those dreams be eaten by something from outside our universe. If becoming a guardian means they get to keep dreaming, then that is what I will become." The transformation would happen at the Crucible, the name humanity had given to Vilith's ancient structure. The 3 million volunteers traveled there in waves, carried by every ship that could make the journey. Daniel went with the first group, along with Maria and Lavra. He wanted to be among the first to change, to show others that it could be done. The day before the transformation began, Valith gathered all the volunteers in a space that seemed to stretch forever. They stood on platforms of light that floated in a void filled with distant stars, and they looked up at the being who had waited 4 billion years for this moment. "I want to thank you," Valith said. The ancient voice echoed through the impossible space, reaching every ear at once. "You honor your species more than you can know. You honor the architects who created me and the solution you are about to become part of. And you honor every living thing in this galaxy that will survive because of what you are willing to sacrifice." "What will happen to us?" someone asked from the crowd. "In the moment of transformation, what will we feel?" Valith considered the question carefully before answering. "At first, there will be light. More light than your eyes have ever seen. More than your mind can process. Then there will be expansion. You will feel your consciousness growing, stretching outward, connecting with the weapon and with each other. It may be frightening at first. Your instincts will tell you to pull back, to protect yourself. Do not listen. Let the change happen. Trust in the process. Will it hurt? Christine asked. Her voice was steady, but Daniel could see her hands shaking slightly. There will be discomfort, Valeth admitted. Your body is being remade at the most basic level. Your brain is being expanded to hold thoughts it was never designed to think. But the pain will pass, and what comes after will be worth every moment of difficulty. Daniel stepped forward. What about those we leave behind? Our families, our friends, people who cannot transform. Will we still be able to connect with them? Valeth turned those galaxy-filled eyes toward him. Yes, Daniel Brooks. The bonds you have formed will not be broken. You will still love your daughter. You will still cherish the memories you have made. You will simply experience those feelings in a new way, with a new understanding of what they truly mean. The night before the transformation, Daniel sent a message to Sophie. He told her everything he could not say in person, everything he wanted her to know in case something went wrong. He told her that she was the best thing that had ever happened to him. He told her that watching her grow up had been the greatest adventure of his life, greater than any journey among the stars. He told her that no matter what he became, she would always be his little girl. Her reply came an hour later, simple and perfect. I understand now, Dad. You are doing this because that is who you are. You have always protected everyone you could. Now you are just going to protect everyone in the galaxy. I love you. Be brave. Come visit when you can. Daniel read the message 100 times. Then he put it away and prepared himself for what was coming. The transformation began at dawn on Earth, timed so that the homeworld could watch its children become something new. Daniel lay in a chamber made of pure light, surrounded by warmth that seemed to come from everywhere at once. He could feel ancient energies gathering around him, waiting to be released. Are you ready? Valeth asked. The voice seemed to come from inside his own mind now. Daniel thought about everything he was leaving behind. He thought about everything he was reaching for. He thought about Sophie, about Maria and Laura, about every person who had ever trusted him. He thought about the darkness coming from the edge of the galaxy, and he knew that fear would not help anyone. I am ready, he said. The light grew brighter. Daniel felt something vast and powerful beginning to merge with his consciousness. For a moment, he was terrified. His instincts screamed at him to fight, to resist, to hold on to what he knew. But he remembered Valeth's words. He let go. He trusted Dot, and Daniel Brooks became something more than human. The last thing he saw with his old eyes was Sophie's message, still glowing on his display. I love you. Be brave. He had never felt braver in his life.